Hey everyone, this is Chris from Deus Ex Machina, and I'm going to get right into it. I have an unboxing of some print-on-demand books. Excuse this. I am currently undergoing a medical procedure. I have a funny feeling this is not going to go the way I want. I don't know, I just have an instinct that there's going to be a problem with these books. Let's see. That is a lot of stuffing for just 2 books. Let's get that out of the way. So what we have here, we first have OKTOBER'S Arcane Almanac, print-on-demand version. That thing is huge. Let's get that put aside. The next one in here is Amethyst Compendium. This is something that we've seen a lot. This is just the 4th edition version, and this is just verifying that this is good to go back into print-on-demand. Why it was off, I don't know. And then finally, here it is, Threshold, an Archive of Evolution. Our print-on-demand art book, which I'm actually really happy about. We're going to go over these really very quickly, but so far so good. That's Daegu food. And we've got 3 books here, and I'm going to go over them one by one. So we are here first with Threshold, an Archive of Evolution. Now this is actually not a game book technically. This is a art book, and there's a PDF you can download which has the rules. So this is an experiment we're playing with. Back cover looks wonderful. I'm gonna go over this and let's see how this looks. There's our Threshold. So this is actually looking better than I thought. So this is an art book. It is designed to be it's very much inspired by the Terran Trade Authority handbooks. And, but it's my own story, my own setting, and of course illustrations are all done by Nick Greenwood. Very, very interesting, yeah. So obviously if this was a higher quality, we would be using a glossy paper to really bring that black out. Problem is that the premium version still doesn't have, it's just a slightly thicker paper. It's not really a glossy paper. If we go to something like these, for example, they're still a matte finish. So the only way for us to get glossy is if we went and did an offset print run, which would be astronomically expensive. This looks actually way better than I expected. Not all these art books that him and I are planning on doing will be black. In fact, the next one's going to have a white background. But not bad. And it's also going to be not that expensive just because the book isn't that big. And all the rules and mechanics are in a separate PDF file. So you could just purchase this if you want, like, you know, like a coffee table book. Yeah, no real problem so far. It's a collection of original images and artwork we've been using before. The next one of these is Sparkplug Chronicles, which will hopefully be entirely original artwork and new stuff. And the whole point of the book is to be a collection, oh that's interesting, of these excerpts. I don't want to ruin it, but the whole idea is that these are excerpts and recovered files from an alien species in the far, far future that's trying to rebuild human civilization and trying to figure out who they were, because they've gone extinct. But this is not Earth. This is not a humanity that was just on Earth. This is a humanity that had spread across the cosmos for thousands of light years and then vanished. And they're trying to figure out what happened to them. And so what we have here is just a bunch of excerpts. Sometimes they're Wikipedia articles, sometimes they're interviews, television broadcasts, and you'll know that if it'll say video on file, because this book is presented as a book that has been translated to human language to make things easier for this commission that is assembling this data. So, yeah, as I said, that's a good number of these illustrations. This is, of course, a slightly modified version of the book. The book was originally a 10 by 10, and unfortunately, there was no way to do a 10 by 10 book cheaply. Basically, the book is going to get listed for a price, and I can tell you that the 10 by 10 version, which would have been amazing, would have been almost quadruple the price. I'm not even joking. Quadruple the price. That's how kind of insane it was. Oh, that came out really nice. Because you see this, this was supposed to be kind of a faded image. This is basically supposed to be kind of like a VHS log. You do see that image in full detail later, but at this point you don't. So this, I did all the layout myself. There's some things I'm particularly proud of when it comes like building this excerpt image here, and I built everything myself. And then all the illustrations were Nick. There's the cover. Unlike other books, like something like The Electric State, this book does not have an actual set of characters. You're not following. There is a story, but it's very broken, and there is a bit of a narrative in the background if you actually pay attention. And anyway, it's very much inspired by the TTA, Terran Trade Authority handbooks, in that it's somewhat non-linear, and we're following these excerpts and not following any one specific character. The TTA books, for example, were basically lists of spaceships, and through that you pick up the narrative of the world of Earth. But yeah, there you go. 3 Threshold, an Archive of Extinction, and a illustrated art book, the first and hopefully the first of many. I'm not going to really go into a flip page of this one, just because this book's been actually out and available for almost 10 years. This is the 4E version of the core book of Amethyst. If it's 5th edition, it's Quintessence. If it's 13th age, it's Apotheosis, and so forth. Destiny is Fate. But for some reason, the compendium was taken off of the print on demand, and so I actually had to order a new version. I already have this book. So it's good that it's all fine. I can send that out, and people will receive the coupon for that. But this is what I think a lot of people are looking forward to, the Arcane Almanac, which is supposed to be a 200-page book, and it very much was not a 200-page book. This is kind of crazy. So for those people who don't know, October was this is called October's Arcane Almanac because it's written by a guy named October. This is October here. October is a character that was created by Mark Meer. That's my disclaimer. Mark is a dear friend of mine. First, we'll stick the side and then the back. That came out really good, right? Once again, kudos to Nick who did all the illustrations once again. And this is an intro for about his character. And of course, the funny thing is that that is actually Mark Meer. That is actually Mark Meer. We actually, that's actually supposed to be Mark Meer. So if you know who Mark Meer is, voice actor of incredible talent, actor in general, actually. He's done a lot of stuff, but he's really well known for voice acting. Obviously, a lot of people will know him as Commander Shepard from Mass Effect. The fact that I can call him a friend is one of the luckiest people on the planet to know that I played Mass Effect and then would end up befriending the voice of Commander Shepard. And so this was very much, this is October's introduction. I was almost tempted to have the whole book like this, but I know that would piss people off. So anyway, we have a bunch of magic systems. Now, the whole point of October's Arcane Almanac is that it was supposed to be all the magic systems that I've created over the years, because I created one in Ultra Modern, Amethyst has one, there's one in each of the Affinity books, Conestoga, Taurus, and Paradise. And I figured it'd be cool to throw them all together in one book. But then I ended up making a new one in Amethyst Revelations, which just came out this year. Actually, last year, sorry. And I'm pointing it off screen. You can't really see it. And then I decided to, what the hell, make 3 more because I'm an idiot, and I decided to give myself another 2 months worth of work. So we go into, once again, the new rules because this is compatible with Ultramodern. I always try to put in the rules that you need so you could play this without Ultramodern. So you don't technically need Ultramodern for these. Dark is from Ultramodern, so like I said, it's not really a carbon copy. We don't always just copy paste. In some situations, we are going in and tweaking and adding in the rules based on feedback because there's only so much pre-testing we can do before we go into print, and sometimes we get a lot of little suggestions that go in. So Ultramodern, this version is just not a copy paste. It has been updated based on feedback. All of them were basically updated, sometimes minor, sometimes in subtle ways. But if you have Ultramodern, then this is not going to be unfamiliar for you. So we'll skip past all of these, but so far so good. Everything looks okay. No issues with the images, which is good because sometimes I'll get these print on demands and they would look really bad. There'd be black boxes over everything. Of course, I speak too soon, but that may happen still. That's not what I'm talking about. That's actually intentional. And also the illustrations will shift slightly because when I go to the new spellcasting system, I'm using the illustrations from that book, and so the affinity illustrations will look different than the illustrations for Ultramodern. So we have the Maker. This is from Conestoga, and this one's very much a Psyker based. It uses a sphere progression system, which is something that's very unusual. Some of these magic systems, none of them follow the Vancian model. Some of them have elements of Vancian, but they don't follow the Vancian model specifically, and some of them break the rules completely. And the Maker is actually not one class. It's actually 4 classes in one kind of umbrella term Maker. So there's actually multiple different versions of this class. There's thermal, and so it's all elemental based. And then we move into Decryption. This is the paper-based spellcasting system, heavily on buffs and traps, and then a big section about creating golems. It's very much inspired by numerous actual religious ideology regarding to like writing words on pieces of paper and then having that be a spell-like effect. This is from Paradise. It's not a particularly big section, but then it gets heavily expanded because we also included the brands rules as well, because those are related to decryptions. Alchemy, which was related to decryption, so the alchemy section is in here. And then on top of that, we have creating spells, and then the inanimates, which are the golems in this setting. And then we also have how to make golems, different styles, and then I think at the end we actually do have golems. Now this is compatible to 5th edition and 5th edition 2024, but as you can see here, the monsters as presented are still presented as the original 5e monsters. These have not been updated to the 2024 Monster Manual format, but that's fine. It's not much really changes in the rules here. This is the Smoke, which is the steampunk-inspired caster that is in Taurus. This one you use deck building. You use a deck of cards, and you get kind of random magic. And you can it's a deck building mechanic, so you can alter the deck by adding and removing cards, and that alters how you cast spells. Spells are still kind of traditional, but you have these power levels that you can invest in to make them more powerful. That's the smoke system. Once again, also looking fine. I don't see any problems here. Let's make sure that nothing's wrong. Everything looks good. We have rules on creating homunculus, which is also part of that system. Now we're moving into Sprout. Not a lot of people know this one because this one's out of Amethyst Revelations, which just came out. So this is the version where you get to create living spells. And we have included everything to make it happen, so including all the... I've tried to remove as much of the lore of Amethyst to make it kind of a universal. That's the thing about these books. Anytime the lore is very specific, we've gone in and tried to remove that lore so it's a bit more generic and it's not trying to be tied to one setting. So this is a version of Sprout which is not wholly tied to Amethyst as much. It still plays around. There's still certain things that you can't get around. The Neverborn are in here as well. So this is not only just the Sprout system, this is the Sprout system in its totality. And we have some everything regarding that. It's a big section because the Sprout section is actually a huge section of the book. I mean, we haven't even got to this is how you build your spells. And then you can imbue the spells, like they become alive, you can add a bunch of stuff. It is a big section. This is probably the biggest section in the book, because this is still doing all of these. This is probably very good. Still going, all the spells, and that you can imbue in these living spells. Okay, so we get to Veil. Veil is one of the new ones. So this is very much inspired by the game Dishonored, and Dishonored 2 and all the other kind of expansions since then. So this is heavily about, it's still spell casting, but it's a lot more active, a lot more combat based. You make pacts with what they're called strangers, and there's different strangers here. So it's not just inspired by Dishonored. I'm not just copy pasting Dishonored. I'm trying to make this an original system heavily inspired by it, but still something. There's a game called Drakengard, and in Drakengard, actually there's 3 games in Drakengard, 5 if you really want to get, or maybe 6 if you really got technical, if you're a real big nerd. For the Drakengard series, there's actually probably like 6 games, but there's only 3 that have the Drakengard name. And in the first and second game, they talk about creating a seal with a creature and gaining powers. And that's an idea that I also carried over. So in some ways, Veil Walker is a slam of Dishonored and Drakengard's magic systems into something that's kind of wholly new and interesting, and hopefully a little bit more original, instead of just copy-pasting their ideas. You basically purchase these abilities, and you can also get boons, and then the spells are called twists. Notice that there's not a lot of them, because this is not you're not throwing lightning bolts and so forth. This is much more combat-based. This is more like a rogue spellcaster. And then we have the archetypes. So this is something I created wholly for this book, so you won't find it in any other book. The trigger system, obviously I would say that this is kind of inspired by what was it, Wanted, the film where people were curving bullets and so forth. So in this one, this is a play off of the Enchanted Firearms from Taurus, but I separated it into its own kind of spellcasting system, imbuing stuff into your guns. You create limit breaks. So this is also somewhat inspired by the martial artist in Ultramodern 5. But as you see, this is actually a very small class in comparison, just because it's, once again, then we get to the seals and it blows up, because there's lots of seals that you can affix. So basically the idea is that you're fixing these seals to your guns, and then your guns can do weird and interesting things. But, of course, to do that, I need to copy the weapons over, because I don't want people to have Ultramodern. So, so we have all of the Ultramodern books here, but I kind of limit it. I don't notice that these are the guns from Taurus. These are not the guns from Ultramodern, so you won't be seeing all the tech level 3, 4, and 5 weapons. This is just the weapons from Taurus, so all the old-fashioned weapons are here. So that gets copied over as well. So once again, if you have Taurus, the class is unique, the guns are not. This is Eldritch, because if you actually go into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they do kind of have a name for the magic in Marvel, and it's called Eldritch. I'm not sure if that's an official name, but since Eldritch is not really a name that you can claim copyright, I'm taking it. So this is an Eldritch system. It is all about somatic spell casting. So there's no words, it's all somatic movement. And the class is called the Invoker. So once again, if you're trying to replicate the spellcasting system from Doctor Strange, this is the closest thing I could create. But once again, I go in my own little direction. I decided to turn it into a martial arts class because that's kind of what they're implying. The idea of you can actually use martial arts. This is one thing I don't think that they really did with the with the Marvel magic system, but that I am doing. The fact that the movements to attack are also the somatic movements to cast spells. So you can, as you're attacking and you're doing melee strikes, you're also prepping a spell to cast. So this is a weird system in the fact that you're spending most of your time doing melee attacks as a martial artist, and then once every few rounds or so, you get to cast a spell. So that's a very different way of casting. and I played around with it because I want I had to rebuild it at one point because I wanted the idea that you could, if you want, cast spells every turn, but you could also find ways to cast more powerful spells that would take a bit. So you'll see here, for example, casting time 2 actions. Originally, some of these, especially the combat ones, were 3 or 4 actions. Now that being said, you're not wasting 2 actions to cast a spell. Every one of these actions, you're actually building, you're actually attacking. You're doing melee combat. But after the 2 actions, you get to activate the spell that you're trying to cast. So you start by figuring out, I'm going to cast Temporal Freeze. It's 2 actions. I do my first attack and then my second attack. And at the end of that second attack, you get to cast a spell. Obviously, read the rules for the specifics on here. And then, of course, we have all the different spells that you can fire out. And once again, this kind of feels a bit more like traditional Vancian spells. But once again, you don't have to research. You don't have to study. Most of these things don't have spell books. And so forth. And so we have that. And is that... at the end, yeah. So this is all of, and we have some golems in here as well. But that's the Eldritch system, and then we have relics, and then at the end, a colossal, wow, that is a big index. Holy crap. Never complain that my indexes aren't thorough. 5-6 pages for an index, so I'm hoping that's thorough. But 360 pages, another giant book from Deus Ex Machina, and it looks great. So hopefully by the time people are seeing this, we will be launching these on print on demand. If you've purchased any of these books, you will be receiving a coupon, so you can purchase these without having to repurchase the PDF. So they'll be at a significant discount. Of them, obviously, I think the Compendium is the biggest book, so it's going to be the most expensive, and then Arcane Almanac, and then Threshold. But there you go, folks. I'm really happy. I was expecting some of these to be bad. I was expecting this to have flaws in it. But so far, I'm actually really, really happy. So there you go. This is Chris from Deus Ex Machina.